Welcome back, and yeah, I know trim panels and sanding is not a very exciting title, but you know, sometimes you actually just have to do some work and it's not all that fun. So this week it's all about creating these trim panels and lots of sanding on the door frames, which I know everybody loves, but no one loves it more than me. Anyway, here's Jeff with the little reciprocating saw. They're just trimming off the edges of this rear trim panel for the part of the cabin, the rear side. Just trimming it from that foam blank that we created last time that you saw. And here Jeff is bonding in the antenna for the nav radios. So this is going into the lower skin of the foreplane on the one side, and it's designed to sort of work through the fiberglass little window there that was laid up in there, as you can see. And back on the door frame, so I'm getting close here to having this ready for the second round of primer, and you see I've got a bunch of different fill areas that I still need to sand on there, but overall things are looking pretty good and getting ready for that. And meanwhile, Jeff and Devon got two platforms ready, or at least just two blocks of foam ready to cut out the shapes there for the front trim kick panels in the cabin. And after putting that antenna in place, Jeff realized that the foam core there was interfering with the B and C connector for the antenna, so he had Devon just sort of cut out a little notch there and just do a layup to close it back out again, so now it's easier to get the connector on. And if you remember last time, these rear trim panels were waiting to be released, so that got done, and then this particular one there needed a little bit of fill in there because there was a low spot in the foam for some reason, and it was just creating a little bit of an abnormality, so a little bit of fill in there, and that just needs to be sanded. And the front trim kick panels there have been completed on the machine, so they need to be removed and just cleaned up so they can be or have the carbon fiber laid up over the top of those. And that's exactly what you see going on here with Devon and Jeff just laying some perf film over the top of those, so when the carbon gets laid up on there, it'll actually release from the foam, and all we'll be left with is just the part, same as what we did on the other panels as you've seen before. And here they're getting the first one already under the vacuum bag, so with these two being done now, what's going to be remaining is just some panels that are going to line the left and right side of the roof, and I still have to work on that, and that's probably I'll be working on that this weekend in the CAD, just creating the shapes of those so they sit either side of that center roof channel, and then sort of butt up to the windows, the upper rear windows, and also the door frames there, so they kind of fit in nice. That's a little bit of messing around in the CAD to try and make something that fits into all those different things, and ultimately, you know, we'll get covered with probably some ultra suede there for the roof liner, and that'll be dark grey this time instead of that light tan or blue grey or whatever you want to call it. And you're probably getting sick of looking at this whole image, but anyway, here's the door frames again, and this time I have it fully sanded now and ready for the second round of primer, and I've cleaned up the masking there a little bit where it came off in some places, and filled in the little holes again with some paper where the door pins are and the hinge pins are, or the hinge sleeves go in. So it's all ready for Jeff to go and hit it with the next round of primer, and then I'll be onto it again for the last time sanding in preparation for doing the top coat. And meanwhile, Devon's working on laying up that second trim kick panel there, and these are the ones that just go in the front. Underneath the dash kind of thing on the sides there, just to sort of close out where your feet are. So just getting that one underway. And now Jeff's getting started with shooting the primer on there again for the second coat. So in the cabin first, and just going from the inside of the frame, getting that all sorted out. And then he'll transition to doing the other side of the frame, and then come outside and do the outside parts. And the goal for production is not to have to do this step or any of this sanding and stuff. Obviously the door frame had a lot of changes and stuff done to it, and that's why it needed to be sanded and prepped and primed and all that stuff. Initially when it first came out, it was already primed because it was primed in the mold, and that's what will happen in production too. the door frame itself will be already primed. It'll come out and it'll just get bonded into place, and then it'll be ready pretty much for finish paint on it. And that's kind of what we're aiming at for this. But because we're in a position now where we're fixing up all these patches, that's why we've had to go through all the steps, and that's what's taken all this time. But anyway, it's got to be done, otherwise it's just going to end up looking like junk if it isn't primed and painted. So anyway, Jeff's doing a good job there and getting the primer down. And while he was doing that, and for taking a break from sanding, I got these other 4 push rods done there for the elevators. That the material for those rods had come in, the aluminum rod. So I drilled those on the machine really quickly and then tapped them out and then put the hardware in there, but you saw that last time, so I didn't need to show you all that again. So anyway, all those rods now for the elevator controls are done. And here's a close-up look at Jeff's handiwork there with a primer, so it's looking pretty nice. This time not as much needs to be done, just going to get a guide coat sprayed on there, and then a finish sanding with 320 wet. So prior to this I was sanding with 180 dry. And it should come out pretty good with the 320 wet, and probably have a few little pinholes and stuff that need to be closed out, but nothing major. So that side looks pretty nice there, and that was just actually a bit of glare there when we were pointing it, coming off that one angle. But yeah, and this side looks pretty nice too. Didn't really have too much in the way of things that needed any fixing, but obviously once you start sanding on it and when you got the guide coat on there, there's always a few things that pop up that you didn't see that you need to address. And now we're on to Friday morning, and Devon's taken off the bags from both of these kick panels, and they still need a little bit more time to cure up. Still a little bit green, another couple of hours before they can actually be released from the foam. And Jeff sprayed the guide coat on there for me first thing in the morning, and my goal now is to see if I can knock out the sanding for both of these frames in a single day. Meanwhile, Jeff's busy cutting out the little slots there in the lower skins for the foreplane in order to have it so those hinge hangers there can actually poke through the skins. And as you can see, he's got the first one done there, pretty much done. Looks nice with the anodized hangers sticking out. And meanwhile, 4 hours later, I've got the first side, the right hand side of the aircraft there, the door frame, all sanded and done. So there's only a couple of spots there that need a little bit of fill. Overall, the primer went down really nicely. A couple of little places there where there was some pinholes, and a few other spots that I just didn't work as well as I should have, but overall on the inside there it's looking pretty good. And so it didn't take, I think it took me about 3.5 hours to do that with all the little finicky bits, but overall pretty happy with how it came out. And here you can see Jeff's now got both sides there of the foreplane with the lower skins slotted out so they mate around these hinge hangers. So it's actually starting to really come together, that foreplane now. It's nice to be able to see all the different parts sort of gelling and fitting together. So the next job is to align the elevator and get that sorted out. And Devon finished sanding on this little patch there for that right rear cabin trim panel. So that one just needs to have the final trim work there done around the outside before it can be taken to the upholsterer. And here Devon's now also been sanding on one of these parachute strap covers in preparation for that getting bonded into place. And I'm moving on to sanding the left hand side door frame and hopefully get it done before the day is out. that's going on, Devon's just doing some final sanding on the little ribs that go inside of the elevators so they can be ready to be bonded into place. And those front trim panels had set up enough, so Jeff got out the little reciprocating saw again and was just cutting around the outside edges there so he could get those ready to release from the foam. And probably still a little bit green, but no damage in releasing them as long as they're sort of rigid enough. So they came out nicely, as you can see. Here's both of them sitting there, and this is the right hand side one. Still needs to be trimmed more around the outside edges there. Jeff just rough trimmed it, and ultimately that one will go to the upholsterer as well and get covered in black vinyl. And surprise, surprise, I was able to make my goal of getting both door frames all sanded out in one day, and with a little bit of time to spare that I could actually get the filler out and just fill in a couple of little holes and stuff, places that I spotted along the way. So you guys are probably wondering why I'm spending so much time on these doors, so I want to give you a quick explanation of what's going on with that. So really, we're going to redesign the doors for this thing because of all the problems involved, and I've talked about that quite a lot, so I don't really want to go into all that detail again. But the reason why I'm trying to make the doors look nice right now, and obviously you see I've spent the whole day now wet sanding both of the door frames, so they're ready now for Jeff to put the top coat on those on Monday. And the reason I'm trying to make them all look good is because ultimately we're going to be going out and looking for an investor who's going to help take this whole project to production. And without someone who can really step up and put some real money up here, we're not going to be able to do this project. And so I'm trying to make this thing look as good as possible, so the person who comes in can see that it's the real deal, and it's a good product and we've done a good job of building it. If it's all sort of done in a rush and it just doesn't look good and it's not finished well, it's not going to inspire a lot of confidence, and most people don't have the ability to envision exactly what you're talking about. It's much easier for them to be able to see what you're talking about with a finished article. So bear with us as we finish off getting these doors done. After that, be able to take off all this masking and then start with getting everything installed inside the cabin, which will be the starting with the elevator controls in the cabin, and then working sort of through there in the front with the rudder pedals and the rest of the stuff with the dash, and ultimately all the avionics and everything like that. Yeah, I'm not sure that guy knows what he's talking about, but anyway, that's our update for this week, and tune in again on Tuesday and see what we get up to next week, and thanks again for watching.